The emergency alarm echoed through Kepler Station like a death cry. Captain Day-Ho ran down the metal hallway as red warning lights flashed around him. His boots made loud sounds on the floor. Other officers moved quickly past him. Everyone looked scared. "Captain Day-Ho to the command center immediately," the voice on the speaker said again. Day-Ho pushed open the heavy doors and stepped into chaos. The command center was full of people from different worlds. Strange creatures sat around a big, round table. Some had blue skin. Others had too many arms. A few looked like walking crystals. Ambassador Kyung-min stood at the front of the room. His face was white with fear. Behind him was a huge screen showing star maps. Red dots covered most of the galaxy. Each red dot was a world that Falcon had taken. "Falcon struck again," Kyung-min said. His voice was quiet, but everyone heard him. "The Deneb colonies fell 3 hours ago. 20 million people gone." A creature with tentacles for arms started shaking. This was Vorthak from the Vorthan people. "He gave them no choice," Vorthak said. "Surrender all your resources or die." They chose to fight. Falcon burned their cities from space. The crystal being next to Vorthak made clicking sounds. Her name was Sherry from the Nathari race. "My people lost 3 mining worlds last week," she said. "Falcon takes everything. Food, metals, fuel. He leaves nothing." Day-Ho looked at the star map. Falcon's red marks were spreading like a disease. For 30 years, this human warlord had been getting stronger. His crimson warships were the most feared sight in space. When people saw them coming, they just gave up. "How many ships does he have now?" Day-Ho asked. "Over 200, said Engineer Tae-jun from his seat. "All crewed by humans. All trained to kill without question." Dr. Nari spoke up from her chair. She studied alien life forms, but now she studied something worse. Human evil. "Falcon is not like other conquerors," she said. "He does not want just power. He searches for something. My sources say he looks for old technology." "What kind of technology?" Kyung-min asked. "The kind that makes gods out of men," Nari said. Silence filled the room. Everyone knew about the precursors. They were an ancient race that built amazing things before they disappeared. Their technology was so advanced that it seemed like magic. Vorthak's tentacles curled with fear. "If Falcon finds precursor weapons, he will not just rule the galaxy," Sherry finished. "He will remake it in his image." Day-Ho studied the map more carefully. "Look at his movement pattern," he said. "He is not just taking rich worlds. He goes after planets with old ruins, archaeological sites, places where precursors might have left things behind." The truth was worse than they thought. Falcon was not just a warlord. He was a treasure hunter, and the treasure he wanted could end all life as they knew it. "We need to stop him," said Captain In-Soo. She had just arrived from her reconnaissance mission. Her stealth ship Silent Wind was the only vessel that had gotten close to Falcon's fleet and returned. "How?" Kyung-min asked. Every military force that faced him was destroyed. "The combined fleet of Rigel, gone. The Centauri Defense Corps, wiped out. Even the Battle of Proxima, where 50 worlds sent their best ships. Falcon won in 6 hours. In-Soo sat down heavily. "I watched him work," she said. "He does not just fight. He thinks 10 steps ahead. When we sent ships to Block A, he was already attacking Block B. When we defended Block B, he had taken Block C. He fights like he can see the future." "Because he fights like a human," Nari said. Everyone looked at her. "Do not misunderstand me. I do not praise him, but we must face facts. Humans evolve differently than the rest of us." She stood and walked to the star map. "Vorthans evolved on a world with many predators. You learn to hide and survive. Nathari came from a peaceful crystal world. You learn to build and preserve. Ethereals developed in gas clouds where thought mattered more than action." Nari pointed to a small blue dot on the map. Earth. Humans evolved on a death world. Everything there tried to kill them. Weather, animals, diseases, even other humans. They learned to fight everything. They learned to never give up. They learned that sometimes the only way to survive is to attack first. The alien representatives shifted uncomfortably. They did, not like hearing this truth. Falcon represents the worst of human nature, Nari continued. He has all their strengths, but none of their goodness. He is what humans become when they stop caring about right and wrong. Deho felt anger rising in his chest. Not all humans are like Falcon, he said. No, Nari agreed. But you are the only species that produces both great heroes and great monsters. Your people can save the galaxy or destroy it. Right now, Falcon is winning that race. A new alarm started beeping. Everyone froze. The communications officer rushed to his station. Incoming message, he said. It is from Falcon himself. The main screen changed. A man's face appeared. He looked normal except for his eyes. They were cold like empty space. This was Commander Falcon, the most feared. Human alive, greetings, Falcon said. His voice was calm. I know you are meeting about me. How flattering. I have a message for all the civilized worlds. He smiled, but it was not a kind smile. I have found what I was looking for. In 72 hours, I will demonstrate new power. After that, every world will have a simple choice. Serve me or become a warning to others. The message ended. The room was silent. Dr. Nari was the first to speak. He found it, she whispered. He found precursor technology. Outside the station, stars twinkled peacefully. But everyone knew that peace was about to end forever. Somewhere in the dark between worlds, Falcon was preparing to become something more than human. Something terrible was coming, and nobody knew how to stop it. 3 days passed since Falcon's message. The galaxy held its breath waiting for something terrible to happen. Captain Deho did not sleep much. He spent his time studying old reports about precursor ruins. Every file made him more worried. The call came at dawn. Deho was drinking coffee in his small room when his communication device started flashing red. Emergency signal. He pressed the button. Captain, you need to see this now, said Lieutenant Bora from the observatory. Her voice was shaking. Deho ran to the observatory deck. Bora stood in front of a wall of screens showing data from across the galaxy. Her face was pale. Other scientists gathered around her looking scared. What happened? Deho asked. Bora pointed to one screen. It showed a dead world called Kronos 7. Falcon tested his new weapon here 2 hours ago. Watch this. The screen showed the planet from space. Kronos 7 was a barren rock with no atmosphere. Nothing lived there. It was the perfect place to test a weapon without killing anyone. Recording starts now, Bora said. On the screen, Falcon's flagship appeared. It was a massive red warship called the Crimson Death. The ship moved close to the planet. Then something incredible happened. Clouds began forming in the empty sky above Kronos 7. At first, just small white puffs. Then bigger gray masses. Within minutes, the entire planet was covered in thick storm clouds. That is impossible, whispered Dr. Chin Ho, an atmospheric scientist. Kronos 7 has no air. How can clouds form with no atmosphere? The answer came, quickly. Lightning started flashing between the clouds. But this was not normal lightning. It was red like blood and moved in perfect patterns. The bolts struck the planet's surface again and again in the same spots. He is controlling it, Bora said. Look at the energy readings. Numbers on the side screen showed massive power levels. More energy than a star produces in a year, all focused into controlled lightning strikes. The storm lasted exactly 6 hours. When it ended, the surface of Kronos 7 had changed completely. Deep channels were carved into the rock. Mountains had been flattened. The lightning had rewritten the geography of an entire world. Weather control, Deho said quietly. He can make storms out of nothing. Engineer Tae-jun arrived running. "Captain, we just received word from the outer colonies. Falcon sent messages to 12 worlds. They have 24 hours to surrender or face weather modification." The words hit everyone like cold water. Weather modification meant Falcon could create storms on any planet. He could make hurricanes destroy cities. He could make droughts kill crops. He could make floods wash away entire nations. "Get Ambassador." "Kyung-min," Dae-ho ordered. "Emergency council meeting. Now." An hour later, representatives from 15 species sat around the council table. Everyone looked terrified. The Vorthon delegate Vorthak was shaking so badly his tentacles made noise against the floor. "This changes everything," Kyung-min said. "Falcon no longer needs to invade worlds. He can just destroy them from space using weather." Captain In-soo entered the room. She had just returned from another scouting mission. Her clothes were torn, and she had burn marks on her arms. "I got close to the precursor site on Kronos 7, she reported. Falcon found something called a climate manipulation, a ray. It was buried under the planet's surface for millions of years. She activated a small projector. Images appeared showing a huge underground facility. Strange machines with flowing curves filled vast chambers. Everything glowed with soft blue light. "The facility is enormous," In-soo continued. "It goes down 20 levels. The main control room has a chair designed for humanoid users. When someone sits in it, they can control weather patterns across multiple star systems." "Why humanoids?" asked Sherry, the Nathari representative. Dr. Nari answered from her seat. "Because the precursors were similar to humans. Same basic body, shape, same neural patterns. The machine probably reads brainwaves and translates them into weather commands. So only humans can use it," Dae-ho realized. "Yes, but there is more." In-soo looked around the room. "I detected other signals. Similar facilities exist on at least 6 other worlds, all in precursor ruins. If Falcon finds them all..." She did not need to finish. Everyone understood. One weather control station let Falcon threaten a dozen worlds. 6 stations would let him control weather across the entire galaxy. "We have to stop him," said Commander Yejun, leader of the combined alien fleets. "How?" Kyung-min asked. "Our ships cannot get close to his fleet. He has too many defenses. We unite every military force in the galaxy," Dae-ho suggested. "Every species contributes ships. We attack with everything we have." The alien representatives looked at each other nervously. War was not in their nature. The Vorthons preferred to hide. The Nathari liked to build barriers. The Ethereals considered physical conflict beneath them. "My people will not risk extinction for a war we cannot win," Vorthak said. "Nor will mine," Sherry agreed. One by one, the aliens found excuses. Their fleets were too small, their weapons too weak, their people too peaceful. Fear made them choose. Safety over action. Only the human representatives remained willing to fight. "Then we go alone," Dae-ho said. "Captain," Kyung-min warned, "the human colonial fleet has maybe 50 ships. Falcon has over 200. It would be suicide." "Maybe," Dae-ho agreed, "but someone has to try." As the meeting broke up, Dr. Nari approached Dae-ho privately. "There might be another way," she said quietly. "My research shows something interesting about the weather control system." "What?" "It requires a human operator, but not just any human. The neural interface is very complex. Most people who try to use it die from brain overload. Falcon must be using volunteers who know they will not survive. So he needs a constant supply of new operators. And according to my sources, he is running out of willing volunteers. His own crew is starting to refuse the suicide missions." Dae-ho saw hope for the first time in days. "If we could disrupt his supply of operators, or find someone strong enough to take control away from him," Nari finished. "Do such people exist?" "I do not know, but there are old legends about humans with special abilities. People who could speak to storms and calm wild weather. Most scientists think they are just stories, but you do not. Nari smiled for the first time in weeks. I think humans evolved on a world with violent weather. Maybe some of you developed ways to survive that we do not understand yet. Outside the station windows, space looked peaceful, but everyone knew that peace was ending. Falcon's weather weapons were already moving toward their targets. In 20 hours, 12 worlds would face a choice between slavery and death. The storm was gathering, and only humans seemed brave enough to fly into it. Lieutenant HFY was fixing a broken radio when the alarm started screaming. She worked on the civilian transport ship Prosperity. Her job was simple: keep the communication systems working. Nothing exciting ever happened on passenger ships. Today was different. All hands to emergency stations, Captain Jae-sung announced over the speakers. We have detected Falcon's fleet approaching the New Eden system. HFY dropped her tools and ran to the observation deck. Through the big windows, she could see a beautiful blue and green planet. New Eden was home to 3 million farmers. They grew food for half the galaxy. The colonists there had no weapons and no military. Red ships appeared at the edge of space. Falcon's crimson warships moved in perfect formation like hungry wolves. The Prosperity was just a transport ship. It carried supplies and passengers between worlds. It had no armor and no weapons. "Why are we not running?" asked old Soo-jin. She was an elderly passenger who had escaped from the first world Falcon conquered 30 years ago. "Because there is nowhere to run," Captain Jae-sung said grimly. "His ships are faster than ours." On the planet below, people were already trying to escape. HFY could see small ships leaving the surface, but Falcon's vessels moved to surround the planet. Nothing would get away. Then something terrible began. Dark clouds started forming in New Eden's clear sky. At first, they were small and white. Then they grew bigger and blacker. Within an hour, the entire planet was covered in storm clouds. "He is using the weather machine," whispered Dr. Bo-ra, who was traveling as a passenger. Lightning began flashing between the clouds. But this lightning was wrong. It moved in straight lines and hit exact targets. Power stations exploded in brilliant flashes. Communication towers melted like ice in fire. The farmers below had no way to call for help. HFY watched in horror. The storms were getting stronger. Hurricane winds started spinning above the major cities. She could see the clouds, rotating faster and faster like giant whirlpools in the sky. "He is going to kill everyone," she said. "No," old Soo-jin corrected. "He is giving them a choice. Surrender everything or watch their world die slowly." Something strange happened as HFY stared at the lightning. She felt a tingling in her arms and legs. The hair on her head started standing up like she was touching an electric fence. But there was no electricity nearby. "Do you feel that?" she asked Dr. Bo-ra. "Feel what?" The humming, like the air is singing." Bo-ra looked confused. "I do not hear anything." But HFY could feel it. Something in the lightning called to her. When she looked closely at the storm patterns, she could almost see the energy flowing from Falcon's ship to the weather system, like invisible rivers of power connecting the warships to the clouds. Without thinking, she raised her right hand toward the window. The lightning outside flickered. "Did you see that?" HFY asked. "See what?" Captain Jae-sung replied. The lightning stopped for a second when I raised my hand. Everyone stared at her. Old Soo-jin's eyes went wide. "Try it again," the elderly woman said quietly. HFY lifted her hand again. This time, she concentrated on the feeling in her chest. The humming sound grew louder. She could almost hear voices in the storm winds. The lightning stopped completely for 3 seconds. "Impossible!" breathed Dr. Bo-ra. "Not impossible," Soo-jin said. "My grandmother told stories about the old days on Earth. Before humans went to the stars, she said some people could speak to storms. could calm angry weather with just their touch. Those are just fairy tales, Captain Jae-sung said. Are they? Soo-jin pointed at the window. Look! Where Hae-won held her hand, the storm clouds were moving differently. Instead of spinning in tight circles, they spread out in natural patterns. The lightning became softer and more random. I can feel it, Hae-won whispered. The machine that controls the weather. It is like a radio that someone tuned wrong. The signals are all mixed up. Dr. Bo-ra grabbed her scanner and pointed it at Hae-won. Your neural activity just increased by 300%, she said in amazement. Your brain is producing electromagnetic fields. Is that bad? I do not know. It should be impossible. On the planet below, something was changing. The storm over the capital city began to weaken. Rain started falling instead of destruction lightning. People came out of their shelters looking confused, Falcon noticed. The communication system on the Prosperity suddenly turned on by itself. A man's voice filled the ship. It was cold and angry. Who dares interfere with my work? Falcon demanded. Hae-won felt drawn to speak. Someone who remembers what humans are supposed to be, she said. Show yourself. Captain Jae-sung tried to stop her, but Hae-won was already walking to the communication station. She put her hands on the controls. Electricity jumped between her fingers and the metal. I am Lieutenant Hae-won of the Transport Prosperity. I am nobody special. Just a communications officer. Falcon laughed. A communications officer thinks she can challenge me. How amusing. I do not want to challenge you. I want to remind you. Remind me of what? That humans explored the galaxy to find new life and new worlds, not to destroy them. The laugh stopped. Humans explored because they were strong enough to take what they wanted. I am just the latest in a long line of conquerors. No, Hae-won said firmly. You are what humans become when they forget why they left Earth in the first place. Something in her voice made everyone on the ship stop and listen. Even through the radio, Falcon seemed to pause. You think you know me? He said. I know you were human once, before you became this thing, before you decided that power mattered more than people. Power is all that matters. The strong rule, the weak serve. That is the law of the universe. That is the law of animals, Hae-won replied. Humans are supposed to be better. While they talked, Hae-won kept her hands on the communication controls. More electricity flowed through her fingers. The storm on New Eden continued to weaken. She was somehow disrupting Falcon's weather control system just by being near electronic equipment. Enough games, Falcon snarled. You have some kind of interference ability? Interesting. I will add you to my collection of useful humans. 3 of his warships broke away from the main fleet and headed toward the Prosperity. We need to run, Captain Jae-sung said. We cannot outrun warships, Dr. Bo-ra replied. Old Soo-jin put her hand on Hae-won's shoulder. Child, can you do more than just interfere? Can you actually control the storms? I do not know. Maybe. It feels like the weather machine wants to work differently, like it was built for something else. Then try. What do we have to lose? Hae-won closed her eyes and placed both hands flat on the communication panel. The humming in her head became a roar. She could feel the electromagnetic fields of every device on the ship. Beyond that, she could sense the weather control system on Falcon's flagship. And something else. Something old and patient that had been sleeping in the machine for millions of years. Hello, a voice whispered in her mind. We have been waiting so long for someone who could hear us. The voice in Hae-won's mind was old beyond counting. It felt like starlight and deep time and the memory of worlds that no longer existed. Who are you? She thought back. We are what remains of those who built the weather machines. The ones you call precursors. We have been sleeping in our devices for millions of years, waiting for worthy inheritors. HFY could barely think straight. The electromagnetic energy flowing through her body was overwhelming. Every nerve felt like it was on fire. But she held on. "Falcon is using your machines to hurt people," she said. "Yes, he forces our systems to create destruction. But that is not what we built them for. We made them to heal worlds, to bring life to dead places, to make gardens where nothing could grow. Around the ship, space filled with lightning. But this was not Falcon's controlled destruction. This was natural energy responding to HFY's presence. The Prosperity's metal hull began to glow with soft blue light. "Amazing," Dr. Bora whispered, reading her instruments. "She is generating an electromagnetic field strong enough to power a small city." Captain Jae-sung watched Falcon's ships getting closer. "Whatever you are going to do it fast. Those warships will be in weapon range in 5 minutes. HFY felt the precursor consciousness guiding her thoughts. Slowly, she began to understand how the weather control system really worked. Falcon was like someone trying to play a beautiful song by hitting the piano with hammers. He got sound, but not music. The machine was meant to listen to the electromagnetic patterns in a user's brain and translate them into weather. But it needed someone who could think in harmony with natural forces, someone who understood that storms were not weapons, but part of the cosmic dance that kept worlds alive. "I need to get closer to his main ship," HFY said. "That is suicide," Captain Jae-sung replied. "Maybe, but I think I can turn his own weapon against him." Old Soo-jin smiled. "My grandmother always said storms have their own will." Maybe Falcon never learned to ask nicely. The first warship opened fire on the Prosperity. Red energy beams cut through space toward them. But something incredible happened. The beams bent around the transport ship like water flowing around a rock. "Impossible," Dr. Bora gasped. "Energy weapons do not bend." "They do if you can control electromagnetic fields," HFY said. She was learning fast. Every second that passed, she understood more about her strange ability. The precursor voice spoke again. "Your species has the potential we hoped for. Not all humans, but some. Those whose minds developed in harmony with electrical storms. Why humans? Because you evolved on a world where survival meant learning to read the sky, to sense when lightning would strike, to know when storms were coming. Some of your people kept that sensitivity even after leaving your birth world." HFY pushed the Prosperity's engines to maximum speed. Not away from Falcon's fleet, but toward it. If she was going to stop him, she needed to get close to the main weather control system. "You are insane," Captain Jae-sung said. "Probably," HFY agreed. More warships fired at them. HFY deflected the energy beams with her growing electromagnetic shield, but the effort was draining her strength. Blood ran from her nose, her vision blurred. "Child, you cannot keep this up," old Soo-jin warned. "I do not need to keep it up long, just long enough." They were almost at Falcon's flagship now. The Crimson Death was enormous. It stretched for kilometers like a red metal mountain in space. Weapon batteries covered its hull like the spines of some deadly creature. "Surrender now, and I will make your death quick," Falcon's voice crackled over the radio. "I have a better idea," HFY replied. "You surrender, and I will make your life meaningful again." She placed her hands on the ship's main communication array. Every system on the Prosperity lit up with electric fire. The metal walls began to ring like a bell struck by lightning. HFY reached out with her mind toward Falcon's weather control system. She could feel the precursor machine calling to her. It wanted to be free from the destructive commands Falcon forced on it. "Come to me," she whispered to the ancient technology. The response was immediate. Every storm system within 1,000 kilometers began to shift. Instead of the tight, controlled patterns Falcon created, the weather started moving in natural flows. Rain began falling on New Eden's burned cities. Gentle winds cleared the smoke from destroyed buildings. On his flagship, Falcon felt control, slipping away. "What are you doing?" he screamed over the radio. Giving the machine what it really wants, HFY replied. A chance to create instead of destroy. The weather control chair on Falcon's ship began to smoke. The human operator sitting in it cried out in pain as conflicting signals flooded his brain. He fell unconscious and was rushed away by medical teams. No more volunteers will take the chair, the precursor voice told HFY. His crew finally understands that we do not wish to be weapons. Falcon's voice became desperate. You think you have won, but I have other weapons. I will blast your little ship into particles. Try it, HFY said calmly. The Crimson Death fired every weapon it had. Hundreds of energy beams and explosive missiles rushed toward the tiny Prosperity. It should have been instant death. Instead, the weapons simply stopped working. Energy beams fizzled out. Missiles lost power and drifted harmlessly in space. Electromagnetic pulse, Dr. Bo-Ra explained in amazement. She is generating an EMP field that shuts down any technology that comes too close. HFY was barely conscious now. The power flowing through her body was more than any human was meant to handle. But she held on because she could feel something else happening. All across the galaxy, other precursor weather systems were waking up. The machines Falcon had not found yet were responding to her call. They began working as they were meant to work, healing damaged atmospheres, bringing rain to desert worlds, clearing poisoned skies. The network is activating, the precursor voice said with something like joy. For the first time in millions of years, our children are singing together. But the effort was killing HFY. Her heart was beating too fast. Her brain could not handle much more electrical activity. I cannot hold this much longer, she gasped. You do not need to, old Sujin said gently. Look. Through the observation windows, they could see Falcon's fleet. But something had changed. Many of the warships were powering down their weapons. Some were actually turning away from the battle. His crews are remembering, Dr. Bo-Ra realized. The electromagnetic field is affecting their minds too, clearing away the fear and anger that kept them loyal to Falcon. On ships throughout the fleet, human soldiers and officers stopped fighting. For the first time in years, they could think clearly without Falcon's constant propaganda and threats. They remembered why they had joined the military. To protect people, not to conquer them. Many began to cry as they realized what they had become. This is mutiny, Falcon screamed over the communication channels. Return to your posts immediately. But no one listened anymore. The spell of fear he had cast over his followers was broken. HFY smiled as darkness closed around her vision. The storms remember what they were meant to be, she whispered, and so do the people. She collapsed, but her work was done. Across the galaxy, precursor weather systems continued their healing work, and Falcon's empire began to crumble as his own people turned against him. HFY woke up 3 days later in a medical bay on Kepler Station. Her body ached like she had been struck by lightning 100 times, which, in a way, she had been. Dr. Bo-Ra sat beside her bed reading medical charts. How do you feel? She asked. Like I stuck my finger in a power outlet the size of a star, HFY replied weakly. That is not far from the truth. You generated more electrical energy than most power plants. By all rights, you should be dead. HFY tried to sit up, but her muscles would not obey. What happened to Falcon? He is alive, but his empire is falling apart. Half his fleet has surrendered to the Colonial Defense Force. The other half is scattered across 12 systems trying to decide what to do next. And the weather machines, Dr. Bo-Ra smiled. Still working, but now they are healing worlds instead of destroying them. The poisoned atmosphere of Kepler-4 is breathable for the first time in 50 years. The eternal storms on Vega Prime have finally calmed. Dead oceans are coming back to life. Captain Deho entered the medical bay. He looked tired but hopeful. The council wants to thank you, he said. Every species in the galaxy owes you a debt. I just did what felt right, Haiwan said. That is exactly why it worked, old Su-Jin said from the doorway. She had been waiting outside. Falcon tried to force the machines to obey him. You asked them nicely. Ambassador Kyung-min appeared behind Su-Jin. We have a problem, he announced. Falcon has retreated to the Chronos system with his remaining loyal ships. About 50 vessels and maybe 10,000 crew members. He is demanding a personal meeting with you. Why? He says he will surrender peacefully if you agree to face him alone. No other ships, no backup, just you and him. Dr. Bora shook her head. Absolutely not. She nearly died 3 days ago. Her nervous system is still recovering from electromagnetic overload. But Haiwan was already trying to get out of bed. How many people will die if I do not go? We do not know, Kyung-min admitted. He still has some control over the weather machine on his flagship. He could use it to destroy several worlds before we stop him. Then I have to go. It is obviously a trap, Captain Daeho warned. Of course it is. But maybe that does not matter. 2. Hours later, Haiwan sat in the pilot seat of a small diplomatic shuttle. She was alone as Falcon demanded. The shuttle had no weapons and minimal shields. If this went wrong, she would die quickly. The journey to Chronos 7 took 18 hours. During the trip, Haiwan felt the precursor consciousness stirring in her mind again. You do not have to do this, the ancient voice said. We could simply shut down all the weather systems. Falcon would be powerless. But his crew would still be trapped, Haiwan replied. They are human beings, not monsters. They just forgot who they were supposed to be. You have great compassion for your species. Someone has to. When she reached the Chronos system, Falcon's fleet was waiting. 50 red warships formed a perfect circle around the dead planet. In the center, the Crimson Death sat like a spider in its web. Welcome. Falcon's voice came over the communication system. I have been looking forward to meeting you properly. Here I am, Haiwan said. What do you want? To understand how you did it. How one small human girl destroyed an empire that took me 30 years to build. Haiwan guided her shuttle toward the Crimson Death's docking bay. I did not destroy anything. I just reminded people of what they already knew. And what was that? That humans are better than this. She docked with the flagship and walked through metal corridors toward the bridge. Crew members stared at her as she passed. Many looked ashamed. Others seemed confused, like people waking up from a bad dream. The bridge was enormous. Screens covered every wall, showing star maps and weapon systems. In the center sat a command chair where Falcon waited. He was smaller than she expected. Just a normal-looking middle-aged man with gray hair and tired eyes. But when he looked at her, she could see the weight of all his terrible choices. So you are the one who broke my hold over them, he said. You broke your own hold, Haiwan replied. I just cleared away the noise so they could think straight. Noise, fear, anger, pride, all the emotions you use to control people. The electromagnetic field I generate seems to calm those feelings. Lets people remember who they really are underneath. Falcon stood up slowly. And who am I underneath? Haiwan looked at him carefully. Past the cold expression and imperial uniform, she could see traces of the man he used to be. An explorer, she said finally. Someone who wanted to see what was beyond the next star. Before you decided that conquest was easier than discovery. Something flickered across Falcon's face. Pain, maybe, or regret. You think you know me. I think I know what you could have been. What I could have been does not matter. Only what I am. What are you? Falcon was quiet for a long moment. A man who made the wrong choice 30 years ago and kept making it every day since. He walked to the main window and stared out at his fleet. Do you know why I really wanted to meet you? To kill me. No, to ask you something. He turned back to her. The weather machines. Can they really heal worlds? Yes, that is what they were built for. Could they heal a world that has been poisoned by industrial accidents? Where the air is too thick to breathe and the water is full of poison. HFY felt a chill of understanding. Your home world. New Brisbane. I was born there. My family lived there for generations. Then the mining companies came. They said they would bring prosperity. Instead, they brought death. He sat down heavily in his command chair. My parents died coughing up blood. My sister's children were born sick. The whole planet became a graveyard. I swore I would find a way to fix it. So you became a conqueror. I became what I thought I needed to become. Strong enough to take what I needed to save my world. HFY felt the precursor consciousness stirring in her mind. The weather machines could help New Brisbane, she said, but not the way you are thinking. What do you mean? You cannot force healing. It has to be given freely. The machines respond to intention. If you approach them with love instead of anger, they will help. Falcon laughed bitterly. Love, after everything I have done. After all the worlds I destroyed. You think love is still possible? I think redemption is always possible. But it starts with making different choices. She walked closer to his chair. Surrender your fleet. Help us use the weather machines to heal the worlds you damaged, including your own. And in return, you get to become the person you were meant to be before grief turned you into this. Falcon stared at her for a long time. Around them, the bridge crew waited to see what their commander would choose. Finally, he stood up and walked to the communication console. All ships, he announced to his fleet. This is Commander Falcon. I am ordering the immediate surrender of all vessels to the Colonial Defense Force. Anyone who wishes to join the planetary restoration effort is welcome. Those who prefer court-martial and imprisonment can have that too. He turned off the communication system and looked at HFY. There, I have made a different choice. Now what? Now we go heal your world, she said simply. 1 year later, HFY stood on the surface of New Brisbane watching the sky change. The air that had been thick with poison for decades was finally clearing. Gentle rains fell from clean clouds, washing the industrial toxins from the soil. The precursor weather machine worked slowly and carefully. It could not fix everything at once without causing new problems. But day by day, the dead world was coming back to life. The atmospheric processors report another 5% improvement, Dr. Bora said, checking her instruments. At this rate, people will be able to breathe outside without masks in 2 more years. Beside them, Falcon knelt in the mud planting seeds. His hands were dirty and his imperial uniform had been replaced with simple work clothes. He looked older, but somehow younger at the same time. My sister would have liked this, he said quietly. She always wanted to grow flowers. She still can, HFY replied. When the soil is ready. Other former crew members worked nearby. Some had chosen prison for their crimes, but many had joined the restoration project. They wanted to build instead of destroy for once. Captain Day Ho approached through the light rain. Message from the council, he announced. The Vorthan delegation wants to formally thank the restoration team. Their homeworld's acid storms finally stopped last week. It was the same story across the galaxy. Worlds that had been damaged by war or industry or simple neglect were healing. The precursor weather machines worked tirelessly, guided by humans who had learned to ask instead of demand. How many worlds are we helping now? HFY asked. 47, Dr. Bora replied, and more requesting assistance every week. Any problems? A few. Some of the weather machines require very specific neural patterns to operate safely. We are still looking for people with the right kind of electromagnetic sensitivity. HFY nodded. They had discovered that her abilities were rare but not unique, About one human in 10,000 could interface with precursor technology. Most did not even know they had the talent until they tried. "There is something else," Captain Deho said. "The archaeological team on Rigel Prime found another precursor facility, but this one is different." "How different?" "It is not for weather control. The machines there seem designed for something called biological restoration, bringing extinct species back to life." Haywan felt excitement stir in her chest. "Like the Earth animals that died during the colonial expansion." "Exactly. Whales, tigers, thousands of species that were lost when humans spread to the stars." She looked at Falcon, who was still planting seeds in the slowly healing soil. "What do you think? Ready to help create life instead of destroying it?" He stood up and wiped mud from his hands. "I spent 30 years learning how to kill things efficiently. I suppose I should spend at least that long learning how to make them live." The rain continued to fall, carrying away the last traces of poison from the air. In the distance, the first green shoots were beginning to emerge from ground that had been barren for decades. "The machines are singing again," the precursor consciousness whispered in Haywan's mind. "After so many years of silence, our children remember their true purpose, which is to nurture life in all its forms, to be gardeners of the cosmos, to help young species become what they were meant to be." Haywan smiled and raised her face to the clean rain. Around her, humans who had once been enemies worked together to heal a broken world. Above her, the sky itself seemed to approve of what they were doing. Later that evening, the restoration team gathered in their makeshift camp. Former soldiers and scientists shared simple meals and talked about their work. The conversations were hopeful in a way that had been rare during the war years. Old Sujin, now serving as the team's historian, told stories about the early days of human space exploration. "My grandmother remembered when the first colonies were founded," she said. "People were so excited to find new worlds. They wanted to build gardens among the stars." "What happened to that dream?" asked one of Falcon's former officers. "Nothing happened to it," Haywan replied. "It just got buried under fear and greed and the need to survive. But dreams do not die. They just wait for the right moment to grow again." Falcon sat at the edge of the group, listening but not speaking much. He was still learning how to be part of a community instead of commanding one. "Do you regret it?" Haywan asked him quietly. "The life you gave up." "I regret the lives I destroyed," he said. "But I do not regret ending up here. This is the first real work I have done in 30 years. That night, as the camp settled down to sleep, Haywan walked out into the rain one more time. She could feel the electromagnetic patterns of the healing world around her, the weather machines humming their ancient songs, the slowly awakening ecosystem beginning to breathe again. But more than that, she could feel something else. Hope. Not just for New Brisbane, but for all the damaged places in the galaxy. For all the species that had forgotten how to trust each other. For all the humans who had lost their way among the stars. The rain stopped as she stood there. The clouds parted to reveal clean stars shining down on a world being reborn. "Thank you," she whispered to the precursor consciousness. "Thank you," came the reply, "for reminding us why we built these machines, for showing us that some species are worth waiting for." Haywan smiled and headed back to camp. Tomorrow there would be more work to do, more worlds to heal, more people, to help remember what they were meant to be. But tonight, it was enough to know that when someone finally had the courage to stand up to the darkness, the skies themselves had listened. And in listening, they had remembered how to sing. 5 years passed. The galaxy was not perfect, but it was better. Wars still happened, but they were smaller and ended faster. Species still argued, but they also worked together on projects that benefited everyone. The weather machines continued their patient work. Dead worlds bloomed with new life. Poisoned atmospheres cleared. Extinct species returned to planets that had mourned their loss for generations. And humans, scattered across 1,000 worlds, remembered why they had left Earth in the first place. Not to conquer the galaxy, but to be part of something larger than themselves. The stars were still vast and mysterious. There were still dangers in the deep space between worlds, but now there were also gardens growing in places that had been barren. And sometimes when the storms came, people looked up at the sky and remembered that even the wildest weather could be tamed by someone with the courage to speak its language. The cosmos was listening. It had always been listening. It had just been waiting for someone brave enough to say hello.